Hi everyone, it's Friday. I almost sang It's Friday and we're ready to sway. Hi everyone, it's Friday. We're here with another episode of Let's Chat with Tonya Lightbourne. Today my guest is Kendra Smith, all the way from Detroit. I'm so happy to have her. We're going to be talking about motherhood and mental health. So guys, Let's Chat starts now. Hi, Kendra. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy to have you. How have you been? How's everything? How's the pandemic treating you? How's baby girl? Just tell us. We haven't seen you in a social media minute.
Thanks for having me, Tonya. I've been good. Lots happening, lots of transitions. Life is in full
Mhm.
swing. Baby girl is doing fine. She is 2 months now, which seems crazy to
Wow.
say,
Mm-hmm.
but we are enjoying her, and everybody is learning new things about each other. So it has been an experience. I've been well. Lots of updates for me, I guess. As I
Yeah.
said, life is in transition, but I've been doing good.
Awesome. Awesome. And I know there's sort of a stigma attached to mental health, but I also feel like there's been such a wealth of information as it relates to that. And so now it's no longer as taboo as it used to be.
Yes.
But moms in particular go through a lot. And I want to say that even through the pandemic, like, you know, one second. Oop. Even through the pandemic, like, we've all been stretched, and moms are typically in charge, right? So where men are the head of the home, but women are in charge of everything else. And also to a certain extent, making sure that they are okay. So we make sure that everybody's okay, and then we typically leave ourselves for the last.
Yes.
And I always say, like, you can't pour from an empty cup, but most times that's where we end up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So before we dive into that, let's talk a little bit about Kendra, the woman, the former. Were you a top model, a Miss Bahamas World?
Uh,
Yeah, those were the
I,
days.
I know I competed in a whole lot, but yes, former top model, former Miss Teen Bahamas World, competed in Miss Bahamas World, Miss
Wow.
Supranational Bahamas.
Oh,
Yep, all of the
been
things.
there, done that.
Yes.
And look, you have your own baby girl, and you can now tell Braylon,
Yes,
you
Braylon.
can now tell Braylon that you were in like top model competitions.
Yep, we
She's gonna be like, "Mommy, you."
right, right. You did all this before me? Yes. We were
Hmm.
traveling and doing a whole lot before you.
Wow, amazing, amazing. So let's talk about the last 10, 12 years. What has been happening? Or let's say the last 10 to 15 years, because that would kind of encapsulate what's been happening.
Yeah, so
Tim was
um
like, yeah.
you did get back that far. So 2012 was when I
Hmm.
made my transition from Nassau and I moved back to Illinois. I lived there prior to, but I moved back because I wanted to go back to school.
Hmm.
So I decided to move in November of 2012.
Hmm.
Started school spring of 2013. Um, Met my now husband
Hmm.
at school, and then I transitioned from community college to university to finish off my bachelor's degree
Yeah.
in 2015. From there, graduated NIU with a bachelor's of biological science and minor in
Hmm.
chemistry because I want to go into dentistry.
Yeah.
So that was the plan. And then
Hmm.
after I graduated in 2018, going through the timeline in my head, after I graduated
Yeah,
in
it's fine.
2018,
Hmm.
I moved to Michigan to be with my husband.
Hmm.
And I have been here since then.
Right. So you told us that you guys were together for 8 years. long distance for 5 years,
Mhm.
and you've been married for 3 years.
Correct.
Very unconventional.
Very unconventional relationship, yes. So
Wow.
we met in 2013, top of the
Yeah.
year,
Mm-hmm.
and he moved back to Michigan in 2014. I stayed in
Mm-hmm.
Illinois. We decided to do long distance then, and he proposed in 2017.
Yeah.
We got married in 2018. I moved to Michigan in 2019. Yes. So we were married a year by the time I moved to Michigan. So we had done our first year of marriage long distance as well.
And how does that work? Because I'm here and my husband is here. Long distance? Whoa.
Yeah, that it was a lot. It was a lot,
Yeah. But
and
did
you
it? Sorry, go ahead.
you're learning each other as well because when he left, we were
Mm-hmm.
young, 20s, and then when I moved back to Michigan, you have to now combine both lives, right? So everybody has
Yeah.
been living separately for so many years. You have to combine both lives, and then you're
Mm-hmm.
relearning each other because you were a totally different person 5 years, 6 years prior. So
Yeah.
it was a lot.
Whew, I even forget what my next question was gonna be. My question was gonna be, did it help you to focus though, like in school, with
A little
just
bit.
being on, well, not just, but being on your own. There were, I don't want to call them a distraction, but there were absolutely no distractions. So you were able to focus on that very last year or so,
Yeah.
for
So
biological science.
it was actually 2 years that turned into three.
Ah,
That
wow.
took me to finish my bachelor's, and
Yeah.
it wasn't bad per se that
Hmm.
he
Hmm.
wasn't there, but it
Right.
also was a little rough
Hmm.
because where I went to school, I didn't have any family very close by, at
Ah,
least. And
yeah.
so my tribe, my community was very spread out. And so I was doing that part of life essentially alone, which can be good and bad, but for me, that was when my mental health started to wane a little bit,
Ah, okay.
and
Okay.
I recognized that there was some things changing in me.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah. Hmm. Both growing as a woman and as a partner,
right,
and then you guys got married, but you knew you wanted to do that for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
we knew.
Hmm. Yeah. And so typically we have a conversation, or I converse with my guests before our session starts, or before we go live.
Hmm.
And so we talked a lot about, just what women go through in general.
Yes.
But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about Braylon.
Oh, she is wonderful. I have no choice but to smile, and I might get a little
I
emotional
know.
talking about her
Oh
because she's really
boy.
great.
Uh-huh.
I'm enjoying her right now.
Hmm.
We are in the gummy smile and cooing stages, and this is my favorite stage so far.
Yeah.
I'm obviously gonna love every stage that we go through. Some are gonna
Hmm.
be harder than others. The newborn stage
Yeah.
was just survival. You on their schedule, and I know but you on
Yeah.
their schedule. But we are growing, and she's getting older, so she's
Yeah.
much more alert, and we're talking, even though she probably don't understand me, and I definitely don't understand her, but
Right.
we're connecting, and I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying that part.
Yeah. What has been your, I guess, the most rewarding part of motherhood for you, to date?
Being responsible for a little human is hard, but
Hmm.
it feels good. Um,
Yeah.
and understanding that I get to help her shape her life,
Hmm.
um, and that's going to be important. But I'm enjoying the highs and the lows. Braylon
Hmm.
is keeping me on my toes, and I'm now understanding what it is to be a parent. Obviously,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
you kind of look back on your life and see how your parents did it, and you was like, I'm not
Okay.
gonna do this, and I wish this, and so, but you understand a little bit more now. So
Agreed.
I think that it's been a rewarding experience just watching her come into herself a little bit, and again how she's helping me to grow.
Yeah.
That's been important too.
Whose personality would you say she has most?
Mine.
Yeah.
She's a carbon copy of her dad,
Uh-huh.
but she is fiery like me that I can see so far. So
Wow.
yeah, so I told you that she's in the cooing stage now, and so we talk to her. Like we try to have
Mm-hmm.
a conversation with her. If she catches you talking to somebody else while she
Ooh,
is awake and in front of you, she will yell at you, and be like, "Listen, attention should be on me. We know this, but I think that she is a bit more like me right now."
really? Wow.
Mhm.
And how does dad feel about that?
Um, he can't say anything because again, she looks exactly like him. So I don't think that he has an issue with it, but it's gonna be interesting when she gets much older and she is able to talk. Let's see if she still emulates me in that regard.
Boy, and you know what? Their looks tend to change. Like, because right now she looks exactly like him, right?
Exactly like him.
And you know, that could change. That could very well change. I think I remember Layla looking exactly like her dad
Yes.
initially. And then over time, like people would say, "Oh, she's starting to look like you." And I would be like, no.
I can imagine
Um, so now for sure, right?
right.
Similarly, when Riley was born, she looked exactly like Sherrod.
Mhm.
I mean, face mannerisms,
Yep.
just carbon copy, like you said. Now it's starting to,
I'm
you
hoping
know,
to see a little bit of me in her. I'm still hoping. I know babies are still changing faces at this point, so I'm still keeping the faith. But
yeah, yeah. I don't know. Um, I know, but you know, it gets interesting. It's I always say it's the best unpaid job ever. Best,
yes,
you know.
yes,
Um, so what would you say motherhood has taught you thus far?
patience
Oh,
that
I
I
think
did not
everybody
have.
says that.
It
Are
was
you impatient?
non-existent. Yes, it was
Really?
non-existent prior to baby.
Yeah.
Now I I take my time um, with everything.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
because I kind of want to be present. I want to be
Right.
intentional with
Yeah.
everything. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
miss something. I don't want to forget anything.
Mm-hmm.
Patience. It has taught me patience, but it has taught me to give myself grace too,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I tend to carry myself a little hard. Um, I
Wow.
I am a lot a bit hard on myself a lot of the time, and so I kind of want to be different for her,
Mm-hmm.
to show her
Yeah.
different that it's okay. Nobody
Yeah.
has this thing figured out. There's no blueprint. Um,
No,
we all just
there's
winging
no
it.
rule book.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no rule. You're
Okay.
making them up as you go. So I'm learning that even though I knew it, it's in full swing. It's in practice at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say that patience and grace. She has taught me so far.
Ooh,
Mhm.
I can imagine. Um, so tell us something unique about Braylon.
Hmm. Well, Braylon is our rainbow baby. We
Mm-hmm. Oh, that is
suffered,
as unique as it comes.
right? We
Yeah.
suffered a loss last year at the beginning of the pandemic. So, May 2020,
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
had a miscarriage.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think that I would be able to conceive naturally because I've been battling fibroids for a few years. So,
Yeah.
Braylon came as a surprise because before conceiving, we were trying,
Mm-hmm.
and doing a lot of um, planning family planning, so it was strategic.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I gave up trying intentionally
Yeah.
that it actually happened. So Braylon is our little miracle, our little unicorn baby, I like to call her.
Oh, that's amazing. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I know that from our conversation that you had an ongoing journey with fibroids. As some black Bahamian black women, period, like not just Bahamians.
Yes.
Um, and tell us a little bit about your journey, because I know that similar to you know similar to women trying to conceive,
Hmm.
um, this topic is a little bit taboo. Like people don't talk about it. It's almost like an
Yes.
underground world,
Yes.
like the support and communities and stuff like that. Like you almost have to seek them out.
Right.
And so nobody comes out and says, "Oh, PSA, I have fibroids," and
Right.
blah blah blah.
Right. Right.
Everybody just expects you to have the baby, right? You don't get married. Okay, now time to have
No
the
one.
baby, and it's
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
about that,
Right.
they just automatically assume that that's the next step. So
Hmm.
tell us a little bit about your journey with fibroids.
Well, it actually doesn't or didn't surprise me when I found out that I had fibroids, because I knew that family members suffered from fibroids. So my mom,
Mm-hmm.
I learned a number of my aunts, if not all of them, had them. My
Okay, right.
grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of already knew. I watched my mom deal with them, fibroids and
Mm-hmm.
cysts. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't a shocker when I found
Yeah.
out that I had them. Um,
Okay.
but I think what I wish I knew was that, I wish they told me that, when you're ready to have a baby, you don't just have sex and then it happens like
Right.
immediately. You know
I
what I
don't think
mean?
anybody tells you that.
Nobody
Not
tells.
really. Right.
Actually, exactly. And I
Right.
and I maybe it doesn't dawn on them, because when my mom dealt with that, but she had her 4 kids. So I guess in from my vantage point, it looked like, I guess, it was easy.
Right.
Um, so I learned that I had fibroids around 2017.
Yeah.
I had an appointment at like my school physician, and that was when I got a pap screen.
Yeah.
And during that pap smear was when the nurse or the practitioner said, your uterus seems a little bit um, extended for somebody who is not pregnant. So we're going to
Mm-hmm.
refer you out to an OB and get some scans done and see what comes back. Came back that there were 4 very large fibroids, is what they said that they found.
Mm-hmm.
I then, continued on with that OB, and during my first appointment with her, she kind of was like reading my chart, and she was like, I'm not certain how you didn't know that you may have been dealing
Yeah.
with something, because based on the size of these, your uterus is
Mm-hmm.
the size of somebody that should be 5 months pregnant.
Yeah.
I was 28 at the time. And so now I'm faced with this decision of,
Mm-hmm.
what do I do with this? Because there's information overload at this time. Do you want to
Yeah.
have children? If you do want to have children, when do you plan to have children? I mean, I know you're 28. I know you're still in school, not trying to
Right.
rush you here, but rushing you here because
Hi.
your clock
Right.
is ticking. I wasn't married at the time. Um, were we engaged? We weren't even engaged yet.
Yeah.
So there's all of these questions. I knew that I wanted to have children, but obviously at that point, I wasn't even living with my now husband, my partner.
Yeah.
So we were in totally separate places. So even if they wanted me, which they did, to try, there would have been no consistency. So I sat on it, waited, prayed about it. And I think around October of 2017, I had a menstrual cycle that was so bad. I remember
Mm-hmm.
leaving work and calling the doctor and saying, I want to schedule surgery today.
Wow.
Her nurse passed that message on to her, and she called me back, and I said, I'm making the decision to have surgery. I
Yeah.
knew with that the fibroids would not be gone forever. She let me know that they would come back.
Mm-hmm.
And that was why that there was a strong push to try to have children, because every time that I want to get pregnant or want to have a child, I'm also
Mm-hmm.
going to have to make a very hard decision about what we're going to do about these fibroids, or are the fibroids going to allow me to conceive? Um,
Right. Right.
so I had an open myomectomy in January of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And what they thought was 4 fibroids on the scan turned out to be 11. She removed 10 during that surgery. She left
Right.
one because it was, too close to another organ that she didn't want to mess with. And
Okay.
so she left that. But she assured me that we were on borrowed time, because
Yeah.
that is going to, ease some symptoms. But at this point, you should be trying.
Yeah.
So, battled with that. When I moved to Michigan in 2019, I had to have
Mm-hmm.
another surgery because the fibroids had grown back a year
Yeah.
later. And that is when we conceived and then lost that baby. So
Yeah.
that was the journey up until. Um, Even with Braylon, I did get pregnant with fibroids, so I'm still dealing with them. They grew back. They were very present on all of my ultrasounds, which was not fun. And she
Mm-hmm.
was in there growing along with them, because as she grew, they grew because of the hormones.
Yeah.
So battled with
Wow.
that as well. So it
Yeah.
was and still is a journey.
Yeah. I'm sure. But obviously, what we love is the fact that there are solutions
Yes.
versus suffering with them
Yes.
and
Thank
or
you.
suffering in silence.
Yes.
And we know for sure that Braylon is a fighter because she's like, "Excuse me,
Yeah.
I'm here now. Am
Right.
I gonna need you to pipe
Make
down until I'm
room.
done?
Make
Okay,
room for
and
me,
make room."
please.
Yeah. So definitely mom's personality. Oh my goodness. Would you say that? Would you say that? So you were done with college and
Hmm.
everything that comes along with that, like finally, oh my God. And then the transition this this new environment, right? So
Yep.
new wife. You want to know me? Come live with me because that's really
Ah.
what it is. New wife,
Hmm.
new life,
Hmm.
new, not so much new country because you were there for a while, but new city.
Hmm.
Um, living conditions.
Hmm.
Um, and then you get pregnant.
Hmm.
Would you say that all of this played into your mental health?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. It was already rough, moving to a
yeah,
different state, right? Because
yeah.
even though I was in Illinois and I went to school in Illinois, my family was still there. So I have my sisters, my grandmother, my aunts,
Okay,
uncles. So I had family there.
yeah,
But moving to a state where you know absolutely nobody and you're starting from scratch was another hill to climb. Um,
yeah.
New environment, new
Hmm.
job,
New job,
new
right?
job.
Yeah,
And then I'm finally living with my husband.
yeah,
And that is our first year back together, um, permanently.
yeah.
So that came with a set of challenges. Like I said, when I moved, or sorry, when he moved back to Michigan in 2014, we
Hmm.
were young and we can do this, and yeah, we
Yeah,
did. But
yeah.
we were now two totally different people with totally different mindsets. And
Hmm.
so now again, you're joining two lives of people who have
Hmm.
kind of lived separately but stayed together
Right.
all these years. And
Hmm.
that itself was a lot. And then boom, pandemic, boom, miscarriage, all of this in one, lumped in one. It was a lot mentally, and I felt like I was drowning in my thoughts. I felt like I was losing myself essentially.
Yeah,
um, and so I had to do the work then to get back on track.
yeah. And is that too because you do you consider yourself an overthinker?
Yes.
You got to plan the
Absolutely.
next step, and then the next step,
All
and
and
then the next
it
step.
has to go right. If it
Like
doesn't
there's
look right,
no hiccups.
it has to. If it strays from how it looks in my head,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
off
a
balance.
problem.
Yes. So I'm a planner. I have to have the next step in order before I can move. So being spontaneous wasn't in the plan, and
You're not a spontaneous person.
mm-mm.
How your husband proposed to you?
That's a story in itself.
I mean, I'm not asking you how, but I'm
Right.
like,
Hmm.
but you had to know at some point, like,
I
okay, my
did.
husband is gonna propose to me.
I did.
So yeah, no,
I
don't.
knew.
I hope he was like, don't ask me no questions.
Um, and I
As
still
much
knew.
as he could say that. You
And
still
I
knew?
still knew.
What is your problem?
I still
I
knew.
mean that in the nicest way possible,
Yep.
but you still knew.
Hmm.
Oh my goodness. You know, though, I think that that's where a lot of women or moms, um, like, because I'm one of those people as well that, like, I don't know. I think women are just automatic. Like, sometimes we're forced into those roles, right?
Hmm.
Whether our moms have been single moms, or whether we've seen our moms be like strong, had to be strong and take care
Yeah.
of stuff. Um, whether society like forces us in the forefront and then the men are behind the
Hmm.
scenes. We go to college, and there's more of us in there than men, so it's a lot of things I think that contribute. So once you start and you gain that momentum, it's kind of hard to stop.
Yes.
So then you start the job, and you're a leader there,
Mhm.
and then you become a wife and you become a leader there, and then you have kids. Well, you definitely have to be in charge of that,
Right.
because I mean, it can go south quick. It can go a different way really quickly, unless you put things in place until it gets to a certain point. But I mean, I've learned, and I have two kids. My first one, I was definitely like you are, like, look,
Hmm.
and ain't nothing good straight.
Mm.
And then somehow with the new baby, or a toddler, I learned like one day at a time, because you can. And I would always hear my grandmother and my mother by extension say the same thing, and it's not until I became a mom for the second time is when I
Wow.
understood. Not that, it's not whatever buck up goes, for
Hmm.
sure, it's definitely not that, but it's like you have to give yourself grace, right?
Yes.
Because you can have things in place, but life happens.
And it
I
always.
even had to, yeah, oh yeah. And it throws you curveballs, and it's like, oh,
Mhm.
you think you're comfortable now? Okay,
Right.
here. Case in point,
Right.
the pandemic. No,
Right.
y'all gonna need to stay home. No,
Hmm.
you can't go to work. No, I'm so sorry if you don't like that woman. You're stuck with her for the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
But I mean, like, there are just certain things that you don't have control over, and something like the Serenity Prayer is what comes to mind. Like, Lord, help me to control the things that or accept the things
Cannot
I can't
change.
change.
Hmm.
Because, and that's a real thing,
Yep.
because you just simply, you either can change it or you have no control over it, so you almost have to release it. So for like planners and people that have a control complex, or just always holding on to things so tight, I feel like, you know, a lot of life lessons are like, okay, you're gonna have to let this go,
Hmm.
because you are not like, you ain't even in charge.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we're not even in charge. It's really up to God. He decides, okay, well, look, um, I didn't think that. I think that if you had continued with your first pregnancy, you know, it may have produced, it may have produced a baby that may not have, been fully, I know, had all of its capacities. I don't know.
But
So
it's
I've
also,
decided, hmm
sorry.
yeah,
It also makes me think though, like I think that's also why I stopped trying. I had to release
ah,
that.
yeah,
It became too much mentally, but then I also had to, just realize that I don't control this when it
No.
everything in its time and never
Yes,
before. And my dad always tells me it's a saying
absolutely.
that my Grammy told him, but he always says, Kendra, disappointment is for the better. Better
Yeah.
is always gonna come. And in the
Mm-hmm.
moment you don't see it, you don't feel it.
No.
So you ovulation tracking and you get your temperature and you planning
Yeah.
sex and it has to be this time, it has to be this day because this is what the app says, and that
Yeah.
it
And
becomes
turn me
so
upside down.
exhausting. Your world is just like
Yeah.
spinning. So yeah, it is. You have to release, and again, for a planner, for somebody who has to have everything in a row, when
Yeah.
you can't or don't have control of something like that, it drives you mad. It's like,
I
why
know.
am I inadequate? Why can't
Yes.
this happen for me?
Yes.
When you kind of blame yourself, you internalize that,
Absolutely.
and that's what I was doing. I wasn't able to process very
Yeah.
early on that,
Hmm.
Kendra, this don't have nothing to do with you. It's gonna happen,
No.
but it ain't on your time.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, so right. So back to what we both agree on is that, you're not in control of it. And sometimes, I mean, I've also learned to just pray about things and leave it. And it sounds easy. It comes over time. But, in this journey, in this pandemic, in just motherhood, being a woman, it's like, okay, I could either worry about it, which solves nothing. It's just going to stress me out, or I could pray about it and leave it. Yeah, I can think about it in the back of my mind. It's still there. Lord, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? I really want to be at that place for 9 o'clock. Okay, it's 8:45. I don't see me leaving home in the next 15 minutes.
Right.
I just always have a plan B. I mean, that's just me. But it takes a minute. Like, you have to learn. That's learned behavior.
Hmm.
And we also spoke about, like, unlearning things, right?
Absolutely.
That we have been conditioned to, that has subliminally crept into our psyche,
Yep.
the way we respond to things, the way we respond to people. So we've had to unlearn a lot. But one of the questions I wanted to find out, or that I wanted to ask, when did you know that you needed to, when did you know that when did you start feeling that you had some issues, some unresolved issues? And then when did you decide that you wanted to do therapy?
So my first experience with therapy happened back when I was in college, actually. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing the resources you have right on campus and not know about that are free to
Mm-hmm.
you.
Yeah.
So pro tip for anybody that's watching that
Mm-hmm.
is in university, tap into your career and counseling center or whatever that's called on your campus. But
Mm-hmm.
that was what I learned.
Yeah.
I told you I was a biological science major. Anybody
Mm-hmm.
that's in STEM, and I don't want to take away from any, major,
Yeah.
but for me, science was hell. And so
Wow.
again, remember that I am a non-traditional student in college, right? So I didn't transition from high school straight into, I stopped, did pageants, traveled, did all of this, and then
Yeah.
decided that I was going to go back to school.
Yeah.
So you have your peers who are sitting in class, this knowledge is fresh to them. They
Mm-hmm.
just came out of high school, they did this curriculum, but also I did majority of my schooling in the Bahamas, which is
Right.
very different. So
Yeah.
all of that factored in. I am in classes and it is rough. You got to supplement your learning, but I also had to work because I had bills to pay. I was living on my own.
Yeah.
So you trying to divvy up your time. So I failed a lot of classes, had to retake them, and that's why it took me a little bit longer. That was
Yeah.
playing on me. And then
Mm-hmm.
I had no family immediately around. So I'm in my
Right.
college town and I live alone. And
Mm-hmm.
granted, you have friends, but when they going home to see their parents and family on the weekend, you
Yeah.
stuck home in
Mm-hmm.
solitude and silence, or you working like a crazy person because you have
Yeah.
things to do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it was then when I felt that I started to break down mentally, and I think I was speaking to an advisor,
Mm-hmm.
and she was like, you should go and try career Counseling and Career Services because they have
Yeah.
counselors there that can help you
Yeah.
of no charge to you, because I mean it's practically covered in your tuition. So
Yeah.
that's where I started. And
Yeah.
I started seeing a therapist there, and that was my first experience with therapy counseling.
Okay.
I stopped after a while because life. And then when I moved to Michigan, again, I
Mm-hmm.
started to feel very low, depressed. I'm going to
Yeah.
call it what it is. I was really
Yeah.
depressed. It was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things happening. I felt like I was wearing a lot of hats and that I
Mm-hmm.
never
And this
got
is
to
when you're
decompress.
as a wife.
As a wife,
Yeah.
as you know, now a graduate. So I didn't have that schedule again with school. It
Mm,
wasn't class work, like you know what's going on.
right.
I have to come home, I have to do laundry, I have to cook, I have to also go to work. And there was a whole lot of things, and you want to be the best person that you can
Oh
be
yeah.
for
Mm-hmm.
your spouse.
Yeah.
And like you said, oftentimes you forget yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
because we've been apart for so long, I guess trying to make up for lost time, and trying to be all of the
Ah.
things that I think a wife should be. Um,
When nobody asked you to do this,
Nobody. And that was a lot of,
or at least nobody asked you to do it to this level.
right, right. And he had to remind me a lot of the times when I was like, oh, I gotta cook, and I didn't thought anything. He's like, I didn't tell you that you
Ma'am.
have to cook every night, but I mean, if that's what you want to do. So
Yeah.
you put yourself into this mold because you think that it's what it's supposed to look like, right? And
Yeah.
so at that point, I'm losing myself. I never feel rested. I have, it feels like a million tabs are open in my brain because I'm just going from one thing to the next. And
Mm-hmm.
again, throw in the pandemic because life needs a sprinkle of chaos, right? And so
Yeah.
now everything's unsure. We're home with each other. Where you had that break during your workday, now everybody just home. And so things are starting to come up that you probably didn't notice before. And
Yeah.
I said to him, I think we need to talk to someone together.
Yeah.
I know
Mm-hmm.
that separately, we also, there's always
Yeah.
room to have a talk with
Mm-hmm.
someone if you want to do that individually. But
Yeah.
I think that we should do something together. We should see someone together, someone neutral. And
Yeah.
we started to do the research on that, and we found our therapist that way.
Awesome. And so you would you say that if a partner, whether you're married or not, but
Mhm.
two people are together, obviously, would you say that if one is doing therapy, that it's automatic that couples therapy should happen or
Hmm.
not?
I think that it would be more beneficial if it did happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Or even if that, even if, so let's say it's just you and you're doing the work and it's working, there's
mhm.
been significant change, you
Right.
would definitely suggest that your partner come to see like what's happening as opposed to me just telling you like this is what we did
Yes.
today.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
and that can be a hard pull sometimes, right? Because you know that you're open to it, and you
Yeah.
know what you get from it and what it does for
Mm-hmm.
you. But it
The
might be
other
a hard
person.
sell to somebody who feels like they don't need it. And
Yeah, that's not with me.
right, I feel like I'm doing fine, or
I'm, yeah.
so I wouldn't say it was a hard sell. I suggested
Mm-hmm.
it and he agreed. He had no
Okay.
issues with
Awesome.
it, um,
Yeah.
because he often saw that we needed, a mediator sometimes. We
Yeah.
needed to figure out how to disagree if we were going to do that, right?
Ah,
Or
not
how to just agree to disagree and leave it there,
right.
not hold no grudges and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You're learning. You're learning.
Yeah.
Um, so he agreed to it and was fine with it. It might be a harder sell to say, okay, outside of couples therapy, you should probably see someone separate, right? Or you
Yeah.
could go to a counselor for your own personal reasons, because I think we unearthed some things in joint therapy that
Mm-hmm.
we recognized was a trigger from way before we even met each other. And so
Yeah. Okay. Okay,
it
great.
plays into how we respond to each other. And that is also part of the work as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I have a question. What does he think? This is funny. I mean, Bahamian women are special. I'm sure he hadn't been in relations with a Bahamian woman
No,
before.
no.
Have you heard any snide remarks like y'all Bahamian women?
Um, he calls me biggity.
Oh,
Yeah.
so he knows what biggity means, obviously.
He is very much trained. You can't tell him he ain't a Bahamian himself.
Oh,
So
okay.
he hears me talk and
Yeah,
he uses slang and dialect. And I
yeah,
think it's the
right.
funniest thing because it sounds totally different coming out of his
I
mouth.
can
But
imagine. I
yeah,
can imagine.
he
So
he
he
is
says you biggity.
he said biggity. We are like night and day. He is very
Polar
calm,
opposites.
easygoing. Nothing much bothers him.
No,
I
the Lord couldn't give you the same person. Could you
I am the
imagine?
fire.
Boom.
Yes, I am the
Yeah,
fire in the relationship. So
yeah.
to him, I biggity all the time. When we out to
All the time.
restaurants, I don't let nothing. You don't like your food? Excuse me. So yeah, that that's me. So to him, I biggity, but
Probably
I
like,
think it's
just
a
take
it's
it
a good
down a
balance.
notch.
I think
It is a good balance. It is a good balance. Um, I remember saying like one or two times to my husband, "Do you want me to call him? Do you want me to call him?"
facts.
And he'd be like, "No,
No, that's
Tonya."
okay. Yeah, right, right, right.
So funny. But we go into protective mode, right? We go into
Absolutely.
protective, and vice versa. They would jump in for us. They may
Mhm.
not say, "You want me called? You want me
Right.
to do the deed?" They may be like, "Okay, well, here's what I think." So everybody, I guess, has their own way.
Hmm.
Um, I wanted to something that you said. Um, did you find that therapy? We went in speaking. We prior to the session, we also said that, or you also mentioned that therapy doesn't look like what it looks like on TV. It ain't
Woo.
laying on the couch and
That was a
like
big.
it's work.
It is hard work. I have
Mm-hmm.
not left a session where I have not cried. Not
OMG.
one.
Yeah.
Again, I think you come into a situation with an idea of how it's supposed to look. But my therapy now that I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing with my husband looks
Mm-hmm.
totally different from the therapy that I did when I was at college. Totally
Okay.
different styles
Yeah.
as
Because
well.
you're a totally different person too. Yeah.
Yes. So I've
Mm-hmm.
I've evolved, but
Mm-hmm.
also every therapist doesn't do the same things or
Okay.
have the same kind of flow.
Mm-hmm.
So again, my
Mm-hmm.
first therapist is night and day
Yeah.
from my current therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it absolutely doesn't look like it looks on TV. You think that you're gonna go and lay on this couch and you're just gonna spill your guts, and they're gonna say, "Well, here is the blueprint to how to fix that." Or you
Right.
think when you're in couples therapy, they can say, "Well, she's actually right. You shouldn't have
Uh-huh.
done that." I think that's what I wanted to hear or what I wanted to see.
Ah,
It doesn't look
that's not
like
what
that.
happened.
No, it doesn't look like that at all. She told us
Wow.
outright, I don't have answers for you because you guys have the answers. We are going to
Really?
work on how to get to those answers. We are going to work on how to get out of cycles because that's really all that they are.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be recurring. So we're going to
Mm-hmm.
work on how to get out of them and how to recognize them when you get in them or before you get in them.
Wow.
So
Right. Like the signs, the
yeah,
flags.
yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And that is how it looks for us. And so when you were like, what you mean you don't have answers? This is what I paying you for. That is not how it works.
That
Now
ain't
again,
it.
that could be just my experience with therapy. Maybe somebody else's
Mm-hmm.
therapist has like a blueprint or answers for them. And if you have that, let me know. Shoot,
Yeah.
give me a message because I'd like to experience it. I would want to see how that looks. I'm not saying that my therapist isn't doing her job. I love her and I love what we are doing because it makes you think critically. Um,
Yeah.
Prior to our sessions, my husband would say something to me and I'd be like, what you mean? I had an attitude about it. And we'd get in a session and I'd hear it with totally different airs. And I'd be like, wow, I didn't know that
Yeah.
that was a trigger for you. And he'd be like, but I told you. I didn't hear it like that when you said it,
Yeah.
but now that we are in this space
Yeah.
where I'm not angry or, I'm a little bit calmer and or better, I
Hmm.
can hear it differently and now I'm responding
Yeah.
differently. It's nothing like I thought it would be. I
Wow.
can definitely say that.
But you love it.
I love it. I
And
do.
it's making you a better person, a better woman, a
Absolutely.
better wife, a better partner, a better mother overall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell us, in your opinion, what red flag or flags any woman should look for as it relates to therapy. When you think about what um, things that may have alerted you to let
Mhm.
you know, hey, I maybe I should, maybe I should look into it, or maybe I should do my own little research, or
Right.
maybe I feel this way. What red flags would you say to any woman that's watching this now, married or unmarried, that
So
she should look for?
I'll start with unmarried. I'll start from what I felt when I was at school and I started there.
Hmm.
I felt really low. Even though I was active in a whole lot of things, it was almost like a smiling depression. Like I knew that something was wrong, that I didn't feel like my usual self, but I had like a default setting. People would ask me, "How you doing?" And I'd be like, "I'm good," but I really wasn't. Um, I didn't want to do things that I like to do. I didn't want to hang out with friends. I just wanted to be alone, but at the same time, not be alone. When I
Yeah,
was alone, I felt, you know, anxious, or overwhelmed. Definitely overwhelmed with
easily
my thoughts.
overwhelmed.
Very overwhelmed with
Wow.
my thoughts and easily overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Um, Transitioning, I can say that those feelings are still the same.
Hmm.
It looks different as a married woman for me, but it also looks different as a mom.
Yeah.
Postpartum was something that I didn't expect.
Yeah.
It threw me for a loop. I was caught off guard, and I had baby blues really early on,
Yeah.
and I had to get a grip on that before it became postpartum depression. And that was when I started seeing my therapist individually again, because there are just going to be some things that I don't want to talk about in front of my husband, or I just feel like he won't understand. So I started off talking to my therapist individually about
Yeah.
that. I wouldn't say, well, for me as a mom, feeling like I needed to talk to somebody,
Yeah.
one of the things that stood out to me was I became withdrawn from baby at times. Like she would cry and I would still like go to her and help her, but I felt helpless. Like I couldn't help her. I didn't know what she wanted.
Yeah.
I couldn't do anything right for her. That was the feelings that I started to feel.
Hmm.
And I knew that she didn't really need much at the time,
Right.
but it felt like I just couldn't do anything right. So that was like the indicator for me that I probably am slipping back into a place where I need to just regain a hold of my thoughts and not let it consume me. So I started to seek someone then. And then in marriage, for me, again, it looked like just discord, and that's not what I wanted for my marriage. That's not what I envisioned. So when you are not on the same page and trying to, I guess, work at it alone, or again with each other, is what I mean when I say alone, with no middleman or anybody else, it you still can't seem to get on the same page. That's what it was for us. Like we just could not figure out how to communicate effectively with each
Yeah.
other. And we needed to learn how to do that really badly. So for us, or for me, that was what it looked like, why we needed to see somebody jointly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, if the opportunity presents itself and your partner is willing, and you know, I guess to a certain extent, if he or she
Mhm.
is not so much if they value the relationship, but if they want to be on the same page with
Page,
you and they
right,
want to know what's happening, etc.,
right.
etc., it's almost best, if not to accompany you at a few of your sessions to just kind of see what's happening, then another route is couples therapy.
Hmm.
Yeah. And
Right.
I feel like it's not like counseling, right? It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's almost like it's to help.
Correct. It
Yeah.
is. It shouldn't be seen as, excuse me. It shouldn't be seen as something negative. Um, it has been nothing but positive outcomes for us. Granted, like I said, every session is something new to process. It's not easy when you're actively doing the work.
Yeah.
But when you learn the tools to help you when you're not seeing your therapist, however many times you see them. For us, we see her once a week, and that's totally up to us or however we want to schedule it. But after that hour block, you got to be extinguishing little fires everywhere for the
Yeah.
next week. And so you have
Exactly.
to learn how to do that. So for me, it was nothing but good
Yeah.
all around, because when we are better in this space, I'm better and I can
Yeah.
function better. And I can check one, less thing off my list. Like I don't have
For
to deal
sure.
with tension here. I don't have to do this, or I don't have to
Yeah.
act like this. So it is beneficial. It's a trickle down effect. If we're doing good at this level, then I can focus a little bit more on me. And now that we have a baby in the mix, we are much better for
Yeah. Because we know that once the baby's introduced,
her. Yes,
then you
exactly
still have
that.
to remember, oh, I'm married. And
It,
he's more than just the financier or the babysitter when I have
mm,
something to do, or, he's more than just that. He's
right.
also your husband, the person that you married. So I might actually need to spend time with my baby. We might actually need to go out on a date,
Yes.
Otherwise you get into this whole, it's a business, right? Like, okay, this is Braylon, this is what she needs. Okay, don't
Yep.
forget to pay that bill, blah 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 blah. And so on
Yep.
and so forth. And then before you know it, it's like, when is the last time we've been out?
Right.
Or
Right.
a lot of you know um, resentment can build, and you don't
Very
want that.
easy. Very
Yeah,
easy for it to
that's kind
happen.
of the beginning of, you know
Mm-hmm.
yeah. No, so I totally get it. um so just to wrap up, like, what would you ways did you suggest for women, maybe not to get to the point where they necessarily need therapy? I mean, if it's gonna happen, if it's gonna happen, it'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
But in hindsight or in retrospect, if you had if you may feel like if you had done certain things earlier, then maybe, maybe I wouldn't have ended up seeing a therapist. what
Mm-hmm.
what few things would you suggest to women and or mothers, um, that they could put in place so that, they become a better woman, a better person, and perhaps not necessarily have to go that route.
So definitely try to find your community. I know that if I was, let's say, back at home,
Yeah.
and and things were different, I would probably be able to tap into married friends, friends who are moms, and
Yeah.
kind of bounce things off of them. Proximity makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And being away from family, being away from friends, being away from your norm
Yeah.
is just adds on. So I think for me, that was a big part of it. I didn't have
Yeah.
my community. I didn't have my girls, my friends, or,
Mm-hmm.
people that were going through the same kinds of things or life
Yeah.
transitions that I was. But also, try to release. I tend to hold on to
Yeah.
emotions, to put on this strong face because we are strong, right? This is who we are.
Right.
But it's also okay not to be. Who's there for the strong person when they're not
Right.
strong?
The strong person also needs someone.
Exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was another thing that I battled with. Everybody's like, "You're so strong. How
Yeah.
are you guys doing this long distance?" And I'm like, "I'm crumbling when I'm at home. Y'all just don't know,
Y'all
you
don't
know." And,
know.
and I can't. I felt like I couldn't say that
Wow.
or emote that.
Yeah.
So try to release. Try to not keep that pent up, those
Mm-hmm.
emotions pent up inside of you.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you can't do these things yourself, because sometimes you need a little bit fire under you, or sometimes you just need professional help, and that is absolutely
That's okay.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Seek the help.
Yeah.
Seek the help. Whatever makes you a better you, do
Yeah.
that for you.
Yeah.
And I do not regret any of the decisions I made in terms of getting professional help, whether it
Yeah.
was just for me or
Yeah.
whether it was to better my marriage.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to say that too. It wasn't like my marriage was in
Right.
shambles or falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
But I liken it to, so my analogy was to my husband. I was like, we're not on the brink of divorce.
No.
Everybody goes through hiccups, and this is just new marital woes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Little small stuff that we can get over the hump. We just need help getting over that hump. But my analogy was, one of the things that an advisor said to me was, you don't have to always get tutoring when you're failing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to get a tutor to maintain your A. So why not just go to therapy?
Mm-hmm.
Again, we're not on the brink of divorce, but if we
Yeah.
want to maintain, what we're doing, we
Agreed.
may need some assistance. And so that was what I said to him. He totally agreed. And so it's just that you don't always have to be going through something
Yeah.
traumatic, detrimental
Yeah.
to seek out a therapist. You Right now, I think that a lot of us, if not all of us, could use some therapy just going through a pandemic. This is
Yeah.
this is a
I
lot.
mean, we could all use it.
Exactly.
As
We
a
can
matter
all
of
use
fact,
it.
to a certain extent, so like I'm talking to you, I mean, let's say we were off this
Mhm.
platform, but let's say I ended up calling you for some reason. Hey, how's Braylon doing? And we just end up talking about stuff. It's a
Mhm.
form of therapy, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Because when you come off the phone, you feel like a weight has been lifted. Oh my God,
Yep.
I'm not the only parent who felt like I don't know who this
Exactly.
person is. All the different nuances that come along with
Hmm.
motherhood and a new wife and blah blah blah. I remember when my husband and I first, when we had our first argument as a married couple, I was like, oh my God, I don't have anywhere else to go.
Right.
I mean, I did go back home, but
Right.
you think, you just like, wow, reality.
Yep.
When
Yep.
them doors close, it's just y'all two.
Exactly. And you
So
want
you
to
have to
make that
figure it out.
environment, the best environment that you can
Yeah,
can
the
be
best environment. So I applaud your husband for
in.
coming on board, or at least accompanying you. Like that
Hmm.
is that's a sure sign. Like y'all in it for the long haul. And
Yeah.
whatever we need to do to make this work, I'm on board. I got you.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. This was amazing.
Thank you.
I'm so happy you decided to join us, even though you claim that you're new mom, like you know what you're doing.
Ah, it looked like that, right?
I know, because you're gonna get to 6 months, and then you'd be like, Tonya, you having a first birthday party? Like what?
uh,
Yeah,
I,
six
I,
months, 9 months, and then
and
she's
then a
one.
year, right? And then she's in college, and
I mean, because like Riley ready to go to school, Riley ready to go to school, and in a minute she's gonna be, high school and then off to college, and it's like, okay,
yeah,
you
I'm
were just
I'm
like born.
trying hard to be present with her.
Yes, for sure.
One
One
of the
day
things
at a
that I
time.
started when I was pregnant, actually, I call it Braylon's love story. So I've been making notes about what, things happened during pregnancy, when I felt her first move, and how I
Uh-huh.
felt when, she came into the world. And so I've still been documenting this journey thus
Aw.
far, that I intend to kind of put together as her little love story from me.
Yeah.
So that's my reason, one of my reasons for being intentional. I don't want to miss anything, but it's also
No.
for me too, right? It's also so that I get to look back and say,
Yeah.
we overcame this, or I
Exactly.
felt this, and I
Yeah.
don't remember feeling this way, and I was able to get
Yeah.
past that. So it's a lot for her, but a lot of it
Yeah.
is therapeutic
Yeah.
for me as well.
And journaling helps too. Like, so
Mhm.
if at any point you decide, okay, I want to document how I felt at this point, or,
Right.
whatever, like, it's putting pen to paper, because
Yeah.
then you're not forced to try to remember, like, what was this date and what did I feel?
Exactly.
But if you journal, like, for some people that works. And
Yep.
so I would highly recommend it. 10 out of 10.
Yes.
Yeah. But thank you so much for your time. This has been great. I feel like we just saw each other at the food store, but we're just catching up. Like, this has been amazing.
Thank
And I
you.
wish you guys every success on your journey. And I hope that someone who's heard this, I'm sure that this has freed someone, like we always say. I know somebody needed to hear this conversation. So thank you for being a part of my platform. Thank you for being a guest on Let's Chat. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye,
Okay.
Tonya.